Alright guys, we are going to be learning about the percent proportion. Just to remember, proportions are what we've been doing. It's two equivalent fractions. So you'll have a fraction and another fraction and an equal sign in between them. The only thing that's going to be different here is that we're talking about percents, and the word percent means of 100, in case you didn't know that. So anytime you see a problem from here on out for the rest of the year, anytime we're talking about percents, one of the fractions on the proportion is going to be out of 100. So we will be using the percent proportion to find parts of a number and sometimes percents of a number. So let me show you what that means. First of all, here's an example of something you could see. So the problem would be like, what is 44% of 88? So if this whole circle here is 88 and we wanted to find 44%, it would be about this blue line. This would be about 44% of that number. So what we're going to be doing is using a proportion to figure out what percent this is. Okay? You're going to want to write this down and commit this to memory. The proportion is right here. It's is over of on one side, and that's going to be equal to the percent over 100. So you will want to write that down. There's another one though. The other one is part over whole equals percent of 100. Notice that in both proportions, the percent always goes over 100. So if you ever have the problem and there's a percent sign in there, you know right away it's going to be over 100. At the same time, if you know there isn't a percent in there and it says what percent in the problem, then that is what's going to go over 100. The variable will be over 100 because we don't know what percent that is. So let's look at an example together. You don't need to write this one down. You can just watch me do it. It says, what is 44% of 88? So right away, 44%. I know that's going to be over 100 because percents are always out of 100. And if I look at the other side of the proportion, it says is over of. Well, here it says of 88. So since the word of is there, that's going to go on the bottom. Just like of is right there on the bottom, 88 is my denominator. Lastly, it says what is. So that's the part I'm looking for, the is. So since I don't know, I'm going to put an X there. And now we're just going to cross multiply like we did before and have been doing all of last week. So I would do 88 times 44, which is 3,872, and that's going to be equal to 100x. From here, I just divide by 100, and your final answer is going to be 38 and 72 hundredths. So the answer to your question here is, what is 44% of 88? If you think back to that circle that I drew, if the whole thing here is 88, 44% of that would be almost 39. Alright, so now here's one for you to try. So hit the pause button and try this one on your own. So my proportion is over of equals percent over 100. So I've got my 55 over 100, and it says of 95, so that will be on the bottom because the word of. And I'm trying to figure out is, so that will be on top. I'll cross multiply here. 95 times 55 is 5,225 divided by 100. X should equal 52 and 25 hundredths. Okay? If you missed that, why don't you go back a little bit in the video and watch the explanation again. If you're good, we're going to go into the same thing, just in a different format. So here's my percent again. I can always start by picking that out and putting it over 100. Then it says 63 is. So this time, instead of putting my denominator as the number I know, it's going to be on top because of the word is. That's my numerator. Then of what number? Well, I don't know, so that's going to be an X. So I've got 41x equals 63 times 100 is 6,300. Divided by 41 is 153 and I'm going to round this to 7/10, so it's like 0.658 something something something. So you can just leave it there. And that's pretty much it. If you're good with this one, why don't you hit the pause button and try this example on your own now. So here's my proportion is over of equals percent over 100. And like I said, you're going to have to memorize that. It's not going to be given to you on a test or a quiz or on the SOL test. This is something you're going to have to know. So at the start of every worksheet and practice activity and quiz and test, it would be helpful for you if you go ahead and write that at the top. That way you remember it for whatever it is you're doing, and then it's there for whenever you need it. Since this says 45 is, that's going to be on top of what number? I don't know. So I've got 80x equals 4,500. And if you divide those, you should get 56 and 25 hundredths. Okay, the last kind you're going to see with the is of proportion is right here. It says, what percent is 55 of 64? Well, you're probably going to notice right away, this is different from the last ones. The last ones gave us a percent, and we knew right away to put that over 100. This time there's no percent, and if you notice, it says, what percent? Well, I don't know. So if it's something you don't know, that's represented by a variable. So that right away, x over 100, I don't know. Next it says, is 55. Is 55 goes on the top. So 55 on as my numerator. And then of 64, we know of is on the bottom. So of 64. So now I have 64x equals 5,500. Divide those. You should get 85 and 94 hundredths. 85.94. And you're done. It's that simple. Why don't you try this one on your own now? Hit the pause button and work this one out on your page. So one more time, here is our proportion. Still don't know the percent. Says what percent? We don't know. Is 22. Is goes on the top. Of 80 goes on the bottom. You're going to cross multiply. X should equal 27 and 5/10. If you're good with this so far, then we're going to keep going. If not, hit the back button and go through these slides again. The last thing, remember back a couple of slides ago, we talked about the other proportion you could have is part over whole equals percent over 100. And this is still the percent proportion, but this is the one we're going to use when we're dealing with word problems. These word problems, you're not going to be able to look for the words is and of. They won't be there. It technically means the same thing, though. Part means is, whole means of. So let's take a look at this word problem. It says Karen had 15 suckers, and she gave 25% of them to her brother. How many did she give to them? Well, right away, this rule hasn't changed. The percent still goes over 100. So 25% out of 100. It says Karen had 15 suckers. So you're going to have to decide with these word problems, is this the part or is this the whole amount? Well, Karen had 15 suckers, so that's the whole amount she have. When she gave some away, that's the part that she's basically getting rid of. So the part in this problem is the amount that she gave to her brother, and the whole amount is the amount that she had, so 15. Part over whole. We're trying to figure out the part. We're trying to figure out the part that she gave away. So we'll cross multiply here. 100 times x equals 25 times 15, which is 375. Divide both sides by 100, and x will equal 3 and 75 hundredths. So she gave almost 4 suckers to her brother, so 3 and 75 hundredths. So maybe she ate a little bit and then gave him the leftovers. How nice of her. I'm sure none of you would do that to your siblings. So now that you've seen one, why don't you hit pause and do the same thing. I wrote the proportion on there for you, so hit the pause button and try this one. So your proportion, it says what percent? Well, we don't know, so there's my missing piece. x over 100. She ate 6 apples, and there were 16 in the refrigerator. So we need to figure out which one's the part and which one's the whole. The part is going to be 6. That's the part that she ate. The whole is the total amount. So the total amount in the refrigerator is 16. So the part is what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out what did she eat. So we'll get 16x equals 600. And if you divide those, we're going to get 37 5/10. And it's that simple. So we just, two things really, in summary, we need to remember, number one, the two proportions. So is over of equals percent over 100, and part over whole equals percent over 100. And then the other thing you just have to remember is figuring out what is the part, what is the whole. I hope this helps. If you're still a little confused, you should watch this again because we're going to be practicing problems like this tomorrow in class and working with these. Okay? I didn't make any mistakes this time. This is the first time recording it too, so I'm going to pat myself on the back. And there you go.